Welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe and dive into stories that'll stay with you long after the video ends. Let's begin. He found her on the side of the road just before dawn, barefoot, shivering and staring straight into the beam of his headlights as if she'd been waiting for him. Evan slammed the brakes, heart hammering. The woman didn't flinch. She simply lifted her chin, eyes wide, lips trembling with cold or fear or something he couldn't name. "Hey," he called through the cracked window, "you okay out here?" No answer, only the soft hiss of wind crossing the empty stretch of highway. He stepped out slowly, gravel crunching under his boots. The air smelled like wet pine and distant rain. She looked young, maybe mid-20s, with tangled hair plastered to her face. A thin white dress clung to her like a second skin. "You hurt?" he asked. She mouthed something, but no sound came out. Then her knees buckled. He lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin felt ice cold, her breathing rapid, shallow. When he tried to lift her, she grabbed his sleeve with sudden, desperate strength. "Don't leave me," she whispered. It sent a shiver straight through him, not because of the words, but because of how she said them, like someone who'd been left behind more than once. He helped her into the truck, blasted the heater, and handed her his jacket. She wrapped it tight around herself, staring out the windshield as if expecting someone or something to materialize from the trees. After a few minutes, she managed to speak. "My name is Mara. I'm Evan," he said gently. "Do you need a hospital or the police? I can take you anywhere." Her fingers tightened around the jacket. "No hospital," she whispered. "Please." He studied her profile. She wasn't bruised, no visible injuries, but something was wrong beneath the surface, something she couldn't yet say. He put the truck back in gear and started down the road toward town. The sky was beginning to lighten behind the mountains, streaks of pale silver creeping into the dark. After a long silence, she asked quietly, "Do you live alone?" The question caught him off guard. "Yeah," he said, "cabin on the North Ridge." Mara nodded to herself as if committing the information to memory. A single raindrop struck the windshield, then another. Soon the truck thudded under a curtain of heavy rain, muting the world outside. Evan flicked on the wipers. "Where were you coming from?" he asked. Mara's breath hitched. "I wasn't coming from anywhere," she said. "I was trying to get away." "From what?" But she only shook her head, eyes fixed on the rain-smeared glass. A strange sensation crept over him then, a mix of protectiveness and unease. He didn't know this woman, didn't know her past, her dangers, her truths. Yet he couldn't bring himself to drop her at a gas station or leave her with deputies who'd ask questions she clearly feared. Something about her felt fragile, and something else felt unfinished. When they turned onto the long dirt road leading toward the ridge, Mara finally exhaled, as if crossing some invisible threshold she hadn't dared approach alone. "Thank you," she murmured. But the way she said it didn't sound like gratitude. It sounded like a beginning. Evan pulled up beside the cabin, gravel popping under the tires. The rain had eased into a soft mist, the kind that clung to the pines and made the whole ridge smell like damp earth and old secrets. Mara sat still, staring at the wooden porch as if it were something she'd seen before. "You can warm up inside," Evan said. "I'll make coffee or tea if you prefer." She didn't answer. She simply opened the door and stepped out barefoot into the mud, not even reacting to the cold. He hurried after her, unlocking the cabin and pushing the door open to a wash of warm, pine-scented air. Mara drifted inside like someone entering a memory. Her eyes traced the photos on the wall, the stone fireplace, the old wool blanket draped over the couch. She paused at a framed picture of Evan and his dog, Rusty, who'd passed 2 winters ago. "You were happy there," she murmured. Evan blinked. "What makes you say that?" She didn't respond, just moved toward the fireplace, wrapping her arms around herself as if fighting a chill she didn't want him to see. He hung his jacket to dry and filled the kettle with water. As it whistled faintly, Mara spoke without turning around. "I'm not dangerous, Evan." He stiffened at the sound of his name in her mouth, soft, certain, too familiar. "I didn't think you were," he said carefully. "You did," she whispered. "That's why you locked the truck doors when you got out." He froze. He had locked the doors automatically, a habit. But he hadn't thought she'd noticed. It had been dark, raining, and she'd barely been conscious. "How did you?" She finally turned to face him. "I noticed things," she said simply. "Small things, things people think I can't see." There was no threat in her voice, only a strange clarity. He tried a smile. Well, I'm glad you're safe now. You can stay here until you figure out whatever you need. Her eyes flicked to his. Is that an invitation? He hesitated, but only for a second. Yes, he said. It is. The tension in her shoulders softened. She sat on the couch, pulling the blanket around herself like a cocoon. Evan handed her a steaming mug, and she held it with both hands, inhaling the warmth rather than drinking it. Outside, the wind shifted, rattling the shutters, a low groan that made Mara flinch. You okay? He asked. She nodded once, but her grip tightened around the mug. Then very softly she said, if anyone comes here asking for me, you won't tell them. He studied her face, pale, alert, half-hidden fear flickering beneath her calm exterior. Are you in danger? He asked. Mara's lips parted, but she didn't speak. The silence stretched between them, heavy, uneven. Finally, she set the mug down, untouched. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Just promise me, Evan. He swallowed. The kettle clicked behind him, done heating, though he'd forgotten it entirely. All right, he said quietly. I won't tell anyone. She closed her eyes in relief. But a moment later, a sharp knock rattled the front door, fast, urgent, like someone who already knew exactly where she'd gone. The knock echoed through the cabin, each strike louder than it should have been, as if the walls themselves tightened around the sound. Mara's eyes snapped open. She didn't breathe, didn't blink. Just stared at Evan with a silent plea. He moved first. Stay here, he murmured. She didn't nod, didn't shake her head. Just watched him walk toward the door like someone walking into a storm they didn't yet know the strength of. Another knock. Sharper this time. Evan hesitated, hand on the latch. The rain had started again. Soft, steady, tapping the roof like fingers drumming a warning. Opened the door only a crack. A man stood on the porch, soaked to the bone. Mid-40s, lean, dressed in dark clothes that clung to him. His hair was plastered to his forehead and deep shadows hung beneath his eyes. Morning, the man said, voice rough. Sorry to bother you. Evan forced an even tone. What's going on? The man glanced past him toward the inside of the cabin. Have you seen a woman out here, mid-20s, white dress? He paused, studying Evan's expression. She went missing during the night. Evan felt his pulse spike. He kept his face still. No one's come by. Rainwater dripped from the man's sleeve onto the porch. He looked tired, but there was a tension coiled under his calm that put Evan instantly on edge. She's not well, the man said. I'm trying to get her home. She can be confused, scared, might say strange things. From behind Evan, a floorboard creaked, barely audible, but enough. The man's eyes flicked past him again. Is someone else here? My dog, Evan lied quickly. He gets restless when visitors show up. The man didn't smile. Instead, he pushed his foot forward as if testing the space between them. I'd like to take a look inside, he said. Evan stepped firmly into the gap. No, you won't. Their eyes locked. Something shifted, subtle, dangerous. The man exhaled slowly, rain dripping from his chin. She's not safe out here alone. I said I haven't seen her. For several seconds, the only sound was the rain whispering off the gutters. The man finally stepped back. If she comes by, he said, voice low, don't let her stay. She doesn't understand what she's doing. He turned and walked down the steps, disappearing into the trees as quietly as he had appeared. Evan shut the door, locked it. Behind him, Mara stood near the hallway, pale as moonlight. Who was he? Evan asked. She shook her head. Not someone I can go back to. That doesn't tell me much. She swallowed hard. He lies, he always lies. The way she said it, soft, shaking, hit him harder than he expected. Evan motioned for her to sit. Explain what's going on, Mara. I need to know what I just protected you from. But instead of answering, she stepped closer, her voice barely a breath. I didn't think he'd find me this fast. Evan felt the cabin shrink around them. Mara, what did you run from? She closed her eyes and finally said, I didn't run from him. Her voice trembled. I ran because of what I did. For a long moment, Evan didn't speak. The fire crackled softly, casting slow-moving shadows across Mara's face, shadows that made her look both older and impossibly young. What you did? He asked quietly. Mara's hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around herself as if bracing for a blow she'd already decided she deserved. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. But intentions don't erase consequences. Evan pulled out a chair. Sit. Tell me everything. But she didn't sit. Instead, she paced slowly near the hearth, the blanket dragging behind her like a trail of smoke. I wasn't supposed to leave, she said. We lived in a research home, isolated, controlled. They said it was for treatment, for safety, for people like me. Evan frowned. People like you. She lifted her eyes to his, and in them was something raw, a flicker of fear mingled with something close to shame. "I see things, Evan, sometimes before they happen, sometimes exactly as they happen in the now, only clearer, louder. It's like the world doubles and I'm stuck between layers. I warned them something terrible was coming, they didn't listen." She stopped pacing, staring into the flames. "I tried to leave that night. I took keys from one of the staff. He caught me before I got to the door." Her throat tightened. "We fought." He tripped, hit his head on the edge of the table. Evan's breath caught. "Did he?" She nodded once, small, devastated. "I didn't know what else to do. The others would have locked me away, said I was unstable, dangerous, so I ran." She sank onto the couch then, as if the truth had drained what little strength she had left. Evan sat across from her, leaning forward. "What about the man at the door?" "He wasn't there when it happened," she said. "But he controls the place, makes the rules. If he gets me back, no one will hear the truth. He'll say I hurt the man on purpose. He'll say I'm not safe." Evan tried to reconcile the trembling woman in front of him with the version she feared becoming in someone else's story. "Mara," he said gently, "you should have told me sooner." Her voice cracked. "Would you have helped me?" He didn't answer, not because he wouldn't, but because he realized the question had become bigger than the moment, bigger than either of them expected. Outside, a sudden gust of wind slammed against the cabin wall. Mara flinched hard, her breath hitching as if she expected someone or something to burst through. Evan stood and moved to the window. Nothing but rain and trees, but the storm was shifting, curling around the ridge like a warning. "You're safe here," he said over his shoulder. She rose slowly, almost reluctantly, for now. Her eyes drifted toward the front door, then back to him. "There's something else," she murmured. "Something I didn't tell you. I didn't see that man's death coming." Evan turned fully toward her. "What do you mean?" Mara's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "I saw something else, something still coming, and it wasn't about him." She swallowed hard. "It was about you." Evan felt the room tilt, not physically, but in that slow, disorienting way when reality shifts and refuses to shift back. "Mara," he said carefully, "what exactly did you see?" She backed away from him, not out of fear of him, but fear of the answer she was finally ready to give. Her palms pressed against the wall as if she needed something solid to hold her here. "It wasn't a vision like the others," she whispered. "It was sharp, immediate, like someone whispering a truth straight into my ear." "What truth?" "That you were going to die." The words hung in the air, heavy, cold, absolute. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The fire snapped loudly, throwing sparks against the grate. Evan exhaled, forcing calm into his voice. "Did you see how?" She shook her head. "Only the aftermath, your cabin door open, rain on the floor, your jacket fallen near the stairs, and someone dragging you outside." A chill slid down Evan's spine. He didn't want to believe her. Didn't want to give weight to something that sounded impossible, but the memory of the man on the porch, the desperation in his eyes, the way he scanned the cabin, it all clicked into place with a quiet, terrifying certainty. "He's coming back," Evan said. Mara's gaze lifted. "He won't stop this time." He paced toward the front window, peering through the rain-misted glass. The storm had swallowed the ridge whole, wrapping it in a dim, shifting darkness. The trees moved like silhouettes searching for something or someone. "We need to leave," he said. "If he wants you, he'll try the door again. If he wants me gone." "He doesn't want you gone," Mara interrupted softly. "He wants control, and if you're in the way—" Her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish. Evan grabbed his keys. "There's a service road down the ridge. If we move fast—" A sudden crack split the air outside. Not thunder. A branch, footsteps. Mara's breath caught. "He's here." Evan motioned for her to stay low as he moved toward the back exit. But before he reached it, the doorknob at the front door twitched once, then twice, followed by a slow, steady pressure as someone tested the lock. Mara's voice was barely a whisper. "He knows." Evan grabbed the heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace. His heart pounded so hard it almost drowned out the sound of the wind. The pressure on the door increased. A shoulder hit the wood, another strike. The hinges groaned, and then silence. The kind of silence that meant the danger hadn't passed, only moved. Evan motioned for Mara to follow him toward the back, but she hesitated. "Evan," she said, her voice shaking. "The vision, it wasn't complete. I saw the door open and the rain. I saw you pulled outside." She swallowed hard. "But I didn't see what happened after because it changed." "Changed?" he whispered. She stepped closer, eyes shining with a mixture of fear and something gentler. Because you helped me, because you didn't hand me over. Her hand found his, and sometimes the future shifts when someone chooses kindness. For a moment the storm faded into background noise, then distant sirens, growing closer, cutting through the darkness. "Evan," she breathed, "someone must have called the police." He squeezed her hand. "Then we tell them everything." Mara nodded, tears trembling at the edges of her lashes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving me a chance to stay." And for the first time since he found her on the roadside, she looked like someone who might finally stop running. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.